Well, good evening, everyone. We're going to go ahead and get started this evening. Appreciate you being here. Those who are watching online, welcome. We hope you have a great presentation this evening and watching. We'd love for you to join us here, but we understand if you can't make it. But before we start, let's just start with a word of prayer, asking God's blessing upon our meeting, and then I'll turn the time over to Sharon. But let's pray. Heavenly Father, thank you so much for your promised blessing tonight as we start this meeting on natural remedies, another natural remedy seminar. Lord, more information that we can learn how to better take care of our hearts, our lives, our souls for you. And I just pray a blessing upon this meeting tonight. We thank you so much for hearing and answering this prayer. Amen. All right, Sharon, we are ready for you.
Good evening. Do we have my volume where we need it? Well, I want to thank you for being gracious with us and on a few minutes late start. That's not what we typically like to do, but we were averting a near disaster, emergency, averting a near emergency. And we're just thanking God that it was averted. So we're here, we're ready to go, just a couple minutes late, and we're just very, very grateful for that. It's good to see those of you who are here and those of you that are online. Glad that you are joining us as well. And I want to make sure that you're registered for the drawing tonight. Boy, I haven't pulled out my drawing books yet. Are we not registered yet for the, do we not have drawing slips? Let me take a look, see if I can help that challenge out. All right, Cindy, if you can come get this from me, this is probably what you're looking for. Sorry about that. Yes. Okay, and we do have some fun things to draw for tonight. So I think Cindy can probably fill out slips for everyone who's here. She'll take care of getting your name in for the drawings. And since we don't have anyone new tonight, we just have the good old regulars. And those who are online watching, we want to provide you with resources as well. So I encourage you to go ahead and text in your contact information, your name and your contact information, to the number that I think that we have up on the screen. Yep, we got it up on the screen. Great. And we will include you. And if your name gets drawn, we will make sure that we get that delivered to you. So please send in your information. We appreciate that. So we need to start tonight with our disclaimer. As usual, this seminar is not a substitute for medical care. It's lifestyle education and not specific medical advice about your condition. We want to encourage you to seek appropriate medical care when necessary, not to take on more than you can medically manage, and don't try to treat a patient whose medical condition is beyond your skill level. But with that being said, we have mentioned that those who follow and use the techniques that we've been teaching often find their need for medical care decreasing. We've been covering the lifestyle, the laws of health, the 8 laws of health. We've been using our New Start acronym. We've been talking about those 8 gifts that God provided at the time of creation for our health and our happiness. And these principles are necessary to prevent disease, and they're necessary to heal from disease or injury. So anytime we talk about natural remedies, these are great prevention strategies, but they are also absolutely necessary for healing as well. So the ones that we've covered so far are nutrition, and we found out that from the very beginning of time, God provided a plant-based diet, and that's still the best diet for us. We found out that we were designed to move. Adam and Eve were given physical work to do in the garden. Water was provided at the time of creation, sunlight, and we also found out that God has built temperance into every gift that he's given us. In other words, the good things need to be used in moderation, harmful things need to be avoided, a life of self-control and balance. So I want to give you an opportunity to share if anyone has anything that they tried, any of these New Start principles that they applied since our last meeting, or any of the natural remedies that we've been presenting that you went home and tried. Anybody? Okay? Okay, so she was saying that she was getting really sluggish and tired, fatigued, feeling a little run down at work, and she drank nearly a quart of water, and how much that perked her up, okay? Yes, and being hydrated really does that. The brain cannot function and focus. It's not as clear. The muscles are more likely to be achy when you are dehydrated. So hydration is an important thing, okay? Anybody else? Something that you applied? Any of the...
Doing that thing in the shower is a routine now, the hot water for 3 minutes and then at least 30 seconds for the cold, just at one time and it helps a lot. It relaxes my muscles because I have rods in my neck and stuff, so yeah.
Okay, so she said that, and I'm repeating this for our live stream audience, so she has been ending her shower with the cold, after the hot, then ending with the cold, and she says it's been helping the pain and the tension, muscle tension in her neck, okay? All right, and it's a good immune boost every day. We can always use that, especially as we move into cold and flu season. Anything we can do to have our body prepared for any challenges it might face is a good thing, okay? Anybody else before we move on? Okay, so we're going to go ahead and cover 2 more of these 8 laws of health tonight. So our next one is A, which is for air, okay? Specifically fresh air. Now the human body operates on oxygen. Every cell, every organ, every tissue has to receive a plentiful supply of oxygen, otherwise it will die. If it has a poor supply of oxygen, it may be injured or diseased. And so it's very, very important when we're talking about natural remedies, whether it's treatment or prevention, that we make sure that we're getting a good supply of oxygen to every part of the body. Not only are cells and tissues that are deprived of oxygen more prone to injury and disease, but they're also more prone to malignant changes or cancer. Okay? So it's good for our immune system as well that every part of our body is oxygenated well. So when we're talking about fresh air, what actually makes fresh air fresh? Fresh air is chemically different than the recirculated indoor air that most Americans breathe. In high quality fresh air, the oxygen molecule is negatively charged. So these negatively ionized air is found in abundance in natural outdoor environments, especially around evergreen trees, beach surf, lakes, rivers, forests, or after a thunderstorm. Sound like we have any of those kind of places in Michigan? Okay, yeah, aren't we very, very blessed? We live in an area where these lakes and rivers and evergreen trees are in abundance, and we have which produces a lot of this fresh air, this negatively ionized air for us. This negatively charged air is destroyed when it's recirculated in buildings, when there's tobacco smoke, city smog, or pollutants. Okay, so fresh air is much different than indoor air or polluted air. Okay, so we find this positively charged polluted air around freeways, airports, industry, and in poorly ventilated buildings. So let's look at some of the benefits of this negatively charged fresh air. So we find, first of all, that it improves our sense of well-being. And you know this, right? You feel better after you've been spending time outside, whether you're working in your garden, your flower bed, or whether you went for a walk. You just feel better. It also increases the rate and quality of growth in plants and animals. This is good news for healing. If you have an injury or a diseased organ and it needs to repair, it's going to do it much better if it has these negatively charged fresh air. It improves the function of the lungs' protective cilia. Those are the little finger-like, hair-like projections that wave upward to move dust and viruses, bacteria up out of the airway. Okay? It increases relaxation and decreases anxiety. It lowers the resting heart rate. It decreases the survival of bacteria and viruses in air. That's why it's so good during a pandemic to do things outdoors. Okay? The likelihood of a virus surviving is much less outdoors in the sunshine and the fresh air. It improves learning, and it decreases the severity of stomach ulcers. Lots of good benefits that are important for prevention of injury and illness and for healing from injury, illness, and disease. So every cell, tissue, and organ, as we said, in our body needs a steady and plentiful supply of oxygen. So when we look at natural remedies, we have to look at how can we improve the oxygen supply to every part of our body. So we're going to look at some suggestions here. The first one is to drink plenty of water. Oxygen is carried to the cells of the body through the bloodstream. So if we want to have good oxygenation, we have to have good circulation, which requires being well hydrated. Second suggestion is to eat a low-fat diet. High levels of fat in the bloodstream will slow down the blood flow in those small vessels, and it decreases the oxygen and the nutrients that are brought to those tissues, making it more prone to injury and slowing down healing. Another suggestion for improving our oxygen supply is to protect our air quality. So avoid any forms of pollution that you can control. Now there's many things we can't control, but there are also many that we can control. So ban indoor smoking. Keep your heating and cooling units well maintained. Clean your air duct and change your filters regularly. Use indoor chemicals sparingly. Avoid idling a vehicle right next to your house or in your garage. And have houseplants. Those are all ways that you can improve your air quality. Being active and exercising increases oxygen. Okay, you breathe deeper, there's more oxygen, and it also increases circulation. So improves the transportation of oxygen throughout the body. Another thing we can do to improve our oxygen supply is to spend time outdoors in the fresh air. And finally, deep breathing. It's important for us to take a few slow, deep breaths several times a day. This is actually a good way to give your body or brain an extra shot of oxygen. So those times when you're feeling sluggish, in addition to that glass of water to hydrate you, stop and take a few slow, deep breaths, and you're going to increase the oxygen to your brain. It'll wake you up, make you feel more alert. It'll help relieve stress, and it will increase the oxygen supply to your body. Now, many of us are shallow breathers for a number of different reasons, but when we're just quiet breathing, we move about 5 milliliters of air in and out with each breath. Now, what do you think that the maximum that could be moved in and out in a breath is? If we normally, just when we're doing normal quiet breathing, we do 500 milliliters, what do you think that the capacity is? What's that? 1,000? 1,500? 2,000, yes, okay. All right. We apparently don't have any respiratory therapists here to help us out. 4,000. Okay, so you can see that when we're just doing quiet breathing, we're not moving air in and out of the entire capacity of our lungs. So there are areas in the lungs, down in the bases usually of the lungs, that don't have the air moving, okay? And that just sets up an environment where infection can set up more easily. The air that sits down there, all of the oxygen has already been taken into the bloodstream. So if we want to increase the oxygen, we want to make sure that we're breathing deeply. Now, many of us as adults, we forget how to breathe correctly. Babies and young children do it correctly. When we're breathing correctly, our stomach will rise more than our chest will rise. And if you ever want to check your breathing, put your hand both on your chest and on your stomach, and when you're breathing, see which one rises most, okay? If your chest rises more, you're doing shallow breathing, okay? If your stomach rises, that means you're breathing all the way down into the base of the lungs there, okay? So when we're practicing deep breathing, I'm going to have you all sit up straight in your chairs. I won't have you stand. You can just sit up straight in your chair because good posture is important for getting air down there, okay? And you can put your hand on your stomach and then blow out as much air as you can. So keep blowing out until you get those lungs completely empty. Blow out through your mouth. And then breathe in through your nose like you were smelling deeply some flowers. You know? Think of lilacs in the spring. Do you feel your stomach rise under your hand? Breathe in deep till you get it completely full, and then blow out slowly through your mouth like you were blowing out candles. Okay. Once you get it empty, go ahead and breathe in again through your nose like you were smelling some flowers. And then blow out. Okay, everyone's wide awake now. Shouldn't have any problems with falling asleep during the seminar. Okay, so that's how you would want to go ahead and do deep breathing several times a day. Repeat it 3 times, okay? And you should be good for a while. If possible, step outside while you do the deep breathing. It's actually, I think I did mention, it's quite a stress reliever as well. So if you're finding yourself in a stressful situation, so if you're fatigued, if you're in a stressful situation, if you're feeling a little foggy, any of those things is a good reason. Or if you're about to go take a test or go in for an interview or something like that, another time get some increased oxygen flowing there to the brain. Let's see, I'm not getting this to advance. All right, so we're going to go on. We're continuing with our New Start principles. So we had nutrition, exercise, water, sunlight, temperance, air. We're ready to go on to our R on New Start, which is rest. R is for rest. Now, physical rest is important for every part of our body. Emotional and mental rest is necessary for our well-being, mental health, and for our stress management. So we're looking here, when we're talking about rest, we're talking about physical rest and emotional and mental rest. I want to talk a little bit about fatigue. Our society is plagued by fatigue. My doctor friends tell me, those that practice in an office, practice in an office in primary care, tell me that one of the most common reasons people come to see the doctor is for fatigue. And as a society, we've come to view fatigue as something negative, when actually fatigue has a purpose. What do you think the purpose of fatigue is? To let us know we need rest, okay? The body becomes fatigued when we need rest. Just like pain is a signal that something's wrong, and it gives us that signal so we can change something. Just like thirst is a signal that means we need to take in water, fatigue is a signal that means that we need to rest. So it's a normal biological reaction to activity, and it results in a decreased ability to perform, and that decreased ability to perform is actually protective. The body's throttling down, making it harder for you to do things, either mentally or physically, in order to protect from damage. So it's a protective mechanism that prevents irreversible cell damage. So fatigue is a signal that we need rest. Chronic fatigue is a signal that we're chronically deprived of sufficient rest. And one of the problems with caffeine use is that it masks the body's normal fatigue signals. In other words, People say it makes me feel more energetic, it makes me feel alert. Yeah, it just masked your fatigue that was giving you a signal that your body needed something. So it tricks the body and the mind into continuing to function beyond the danger signals. Now there's two types of fatigues, and while it's important for you to understand the concept, you don't have to know the names that I'm going to put up here on the screen. The first kind of fatigue is hypotonic fatigue, or we would call it physical fatigue. You know what that's like, right? You've just worked hard all day doing physical labor. Your muscles are limp, okay? And when you fall into bed, you're out like that, okay? The muscles are relaxed because they're so fatigued. The other kind of fatigue we call hypertonic fatigue, and this would be when we're mentally or emotionally fatigued. And unfortunately, for most of us, we have more of this kind of fatigue than we do the physical fatigue. This kind of fatigue is characterized by tense muscles. Your muscles are tight, okay? And sleep does not come easily. You lay down and you think, oh man, I'm so tired, I just want to go to sleep, and you don't go to sleep. What we actually need is some exercise to stimulate healthy sleep. Okay, so when we have this mental or emotional fatigue and muscles are tight, we need to actually have some physical activity to get the muscles to relax, and then we'll fall asleep more easily. Now, did you know that this principle is found in the oldest medical textbook of all time, in Scripture? Here it is. Written by King Solomon, the wisest man ever to live, he wrote, "The sleep of a laboring man is sweet, whether he eats little or much. But the abundance of the rich will not permit him to sleep." So someone who has worked hard all day, the laborer, sleeps well at night, while someone who has been inactive all day is unable to sleep. So every part of our body needs rest, and our lifestyle determines whether every part of our body gets the rest that it needs or whether it's going to wear out prematurely from lack of rest. Okay? You can only run a machine so long before you wear it out. You can only run a body so long before the parts start wearing out. So some parts of our body only need momentary rest. Can you think of parts of our body that only get a momentary rest? Ever? Hopefully. Did somebody say something? The brain, okay? The brain is always functioning. It never shuts down. Now, parts of it do shut down when we sleep, okay? There's other parts of it that continue to function, okay? What else? Okay, the stomach, actually the stomach gets longer periods of rest than some other organs, okay? How about the heart? Okay, that's the one that only gets very, very momentary rest, we hope, okay? If it takes too long of a break, we're in trouble, okay? So it's only that momentary rest between beats. Same for the respiratory muscles. The only rest they get is between breaths. Now, do you realize that the more fit we are, the slower our breathing rate and the lower our heart rate, our resting heart rate becomes, okay? So someone who is more fit and breathes slower, and their heart rate beats slower, as long as it's a normal slower, they get more rest in between heartbeats, in between breaths, and theoretically, their heart and their respiratory muscles should last longer, right? Okay, so there's the benefit of being fit as far as getting enough rest for our body parts. There's other parts of our body that get periodic rests, and I would consider this like the stomach, okay, our gastrointestinal tract. It gets a rest if we give it a rest, it gets a rest between meals or those times between when it's done digesting. Now, the stomach does take some time after we eat to finish its digestion. And if we eat anything too quickly, we slow down the digestion and we end up with a stomach that's working all day. And we have a lot of gastrointestinal complaints in our society. Heartburn, indigestion, all of those kind of things, reflux, a lot of those are related to eating too frequently. So it's a good idea to give our stomach the rest that it needs between meals. Ideally, around 4 to 5 hours between meals for it to finish its digestion process and have a little bit of rest before you give it anything else to start digesting. Okay? And then, of course, we need our daily rest or our sleep. Our bodies are designed to operate on a regular 24-hour cycle, and that's called our circadian rhythm. And sleeping, our sleep schedule, our daily sleep schedule is an important part of keeping the body functioning in that circadian rhythm, functioning healthfully. So while you're sleeping, your body's doing an important work. A lot of the body parts are resting, but there are some important things that are happening that cannot be done effectively while you're awake. Because while you're awake, the body's focusing its energies and its resources on brain function, on muscle function, on digestion, and on being prepared to deal with any dangers that may come down. A lot of that shuts down. If your stomach is empty when you go to bed, the stomach's not functioning. A lot of the brain shuts down, and the muscle activity, a lot of muscle activity shuts down during sleep. So sleep is necessary for the body to do a number of different things. First of all, it's important for eliminating waste products. The body builds up a fresh supply of energy for the next day. It replenishes enzymes, so it builds them and replenishes them. It mends and builds new cells more rapidly. It's not having to focus on that brain and muscle work during the day, so it can do maintenance while you're sleeping. It rejuvenates all physical systems. It just kind of prepares everything for you to wake up and function the next day. It restores the nervous system to a resting state, and it helps the brain process new information, specifically moving it from short-term memory to long-term memory. This is good for students to know. Okay? Sleep is important. If you want to remember the things you've been studying, sleep helps your brain to process that information. So because sleep is so important for the human body, lack of sleep has devastating results for us mentally, emotionally, and physically. Some of the things that happen with sleep deprivation include an increased incidence of accidents. People just aren't as careful or alert or focused. It results in irritability, depression, and paranoia. We've seen that in other people, right? Never in ourselves, but others when they don't get enough sleep. Diminished ability to repair and restore tissue. So when we're talking about natural remedies, about healing from injuries or from illness, this is important. If we're not getting sufficient rest, sufficient sleep, it's very, very hard for the body to repair. Sleep deprivation decreases the functioning of the immune system. It increases the risk of disease and obesity, and it shortens the lifespan. It just wears the body and the brain out more quickly when we're not getting enough rest. So you can see that when we're talking about natural remedies, that proper rest and sleep are very, very important components. They're absolutely essential for the body to heal from disease or injury. So how do we get sufficient rest to optimize our physical, mental, and emotional well-being? Well, there's 4 essentials of good sleep: the quantity of sleep, the regularity of our sleep, the timing of when we sleep, and the quality of our sleep. So when we talk about quantity, most adults need 7 to 8 hours of sleep. As far as regularity, it's best to have a consistent sleep schedule, a regular bedtime routine, so that we signal, so the body knows what to do, what to expect at a certain time, and you'll fall asleep more consistently. The timing of when we sleep, the ideal time for bedtime is between 9 and 10 p.m. Now, if we're talking about any of these New Start principles that I struggle with, this sleep is the one that I struggle with the most. But 9 to 10 is the best bedtime, and this has to do with melatonin production. We talked about it the other night. Melatonin is made during the night, when it's dark, and when we're asleep. Okay? And it starts early, so the earlier in the evening we start sleeping, the more melatonin is going to be produced. And melatonin is what repairs the wear and tear on our body and slows the aging process. Okay, and as far as the quality of our sleep, let's look at a number of suggestions for improving the quality of our sleep. There's actually quite a few things that we can do to improve that quality. Okay, first of all, we already mentioned getting sufficient daily exercise or labor. Okay, Increasing our exposure to natural light during the day. We talked about that increases the melatonin production. Avoiding exposure to light during the night. As important as natural light is for us during the day, darkness is just as important for us at night, okay? So unless it's a safety issue as far as your balance and getting up in the night, try not to leave a night light or a light on while you're sleeping. As dark as possible is the best, okay? Make sure that your evening meal is light or eat no evening meal at all, and try for at least 3 to 4 hours before bedtime to finish your evening meal so the stomach can have most of its work done before you go to sleep. I mean, nothing like all the rest of you going to bed and the stomach has to stay up working, right? So make sure that it gets to go to bed when you do. Avoid late night snacks, work, or TV. All of them will make it harder for you to fall asleep. In fact, that TV is one of the lights that we're exposed to late into the night that makes it hard for us to fall asleep, and that actually decreases our melatonin production, okay? Blue-colored lights are absolutely the worst for us to have at night, and and screens are a blue light. So they have presented quite a challenge for our modern society as far as nighttime. And on that same vein, if you do need to have a night light, it's better to have a red night light. Okay? So red or orange light is better in the evening, not blue lights, okay, or white lights. Okay, a warm bath is helpful. Wind down with relaxing activities 1 hour before the bedtime. Some more suggestions for quality of sleep. Sleep in a cool, dark, comfortable room. Crack that window, even in the wintertime. Fresh air in your sleeping room will help you. Eliminate sleep robbers. They include alcohol, tobacco, caffeine, anger, and unforgiveness. Any of those will keep you awake at night, prevent you from getting the kind of sleep you need. Check medications that could interfere with your sleep and discuss those with your physician. Set aside anxieties and worries, okay? This is a choice, you know? Okay, I'm not going to worry about this tonight. I'm going to let the Lord handle this, okay? A clear conscience, a positive mood, and effective stress management all help the quality of your sleep. And finally, make sure that all is right between you and your Creator. That's actually the very best sleep enhancer available. It's a trusting relationship between you and your Creator, okay? So in addition to the rest that we've already talked about, our daily sleep, our bodies were also designed for a weekly rest, okay? Did you know that in addition to the circadian rhythm, that 24-hour cycle that our bodies are designed to operate on, that they also have a natural weekly internal clock, okay? It's called the circaseptan rhythm. There's a physiological requirement for 1 day of rest after every 6 days of work. The body just functions better like that. And it's most effective when that day of rest is taken on a specific day on a regular basis. And it's interesting that this is true for animals and birds as well as humans. There's a whole field of study that you can look up, chronobiology, where they're watching animals and plants and birds that have this 7-day cycle, okay, a biological cycle. It's interesting, cultures have experimented with different weekly cycles besides the 7-day weekly cycle. And all of them that have experimented with a different kind of week have all reverted back to a 7-day week. During the French Revolution, the Russian Revolution, and World War II, attempts were made to increase productivity by extending the work week, by making the week longer. And each attempt failed. In fact, probably France is one of the best examples of how this failed. When they switched to a 10-day week, it resulted in drastic increases in mental illness. The body and the mind just cannot keep up with a longer than a 7-day week, or a week that's out of sync with that circaseptan rhythm, that internal 7-day cycle that we were designed for. Now, most measures of time are dependent on movements in the solar system. So how do we measure 1 day? Where do we get 1 day from? Actually, from the rotation of the Earth on its axis, right? Okay. Where do we get a month? orbit of the moon around the earth, okay? And where do we get a year? From the orbit of the earth around the sun, okay? And where do we get the week? 7-day week. The Bible, okay? That oldest medical textbook of all time. So it's a 7-day weekly cycle. It's not tied to any movements in the solar system. It's tied to the week of creation. It's the way we were designed to live. 6 days of work followed by 1 day of rest. And our bodies and our brains are designed to function on this 7-day weekly cycle because that's the manufacturer's instructions. That's the way we were made. That's the way we were designed to live. And the oldest textbook, medical textbook that you referred to there, Hannah, 6 days you shall do your work, and on the 7th day you shall rest, that your ox and your donkey may rest, and the son of your female servant and the stranger may be refreshed. Again, we're designed for 6 days of activity followed by 1 day of rest. And that day of rest is designed to be a blessing to us. All right. So weekly rest. One other type of rest I want to talk about is recreation. That's actually a kind of rest, a change of pace. It's important for our health, and true recreation restores and strengthens a person, and it's an important type of rest. Now, true recreation restores us physically, mentally, and emotionally. Recreation means recreation, or to recreate, to make something new, to renew it. So true recreation is not the same as amusements. So be careful what you're choosing and calling recreation, because not everything that we do for a diversion is necessarily restorative. So the word amusement is made up from the prefix a, which means without, and the word musings, which refers to the mind or the thoughts. So amusement is without mind or thought. Okay? And we can all think of amusements that we do that just don't require a whole lot of mind or thought. I mean, I can get busy scrolling or watching something on a screen or doing something meaningless or frivolous, and it's not going to be restorative to my mind, my emotions, my body, like something that is true recreation, that actually renews and restores us. And I found that most of the good quality recreation that I have found for myself involves a lot of the other New Start principles. Fresh air, sunshine, things that are done outside in nature, they're restorative. All right? So that's the New Start principles that we are covering for tonight. So we've got through the R of New Start. We have one more that we're going to cover on Thursday evening. We'll cover the T of New Start. All right, so we're ready to move on to tonight's topic, the world's most perfect drug. Now, usually I'll give you all these hints that we're going to put up there, and you get to guess what it is. But I think we handed out we went ahead and handed out. So if you've looked at the title of your handout, you already know what it is we're going to cover. But this is some of the characteristics of it. Well, first of all, let's say that a drug is any substance that when taken into the body, it modifies one or more of its functions. So what we're covering tonight is not a true drug because it's not absorbed into the body, and it only modifies body functions indirectly, okay? And its only mechanism for modifying body functions is by taking harmful substances out of the body. You remember when we talked about the 3 primary causes of disease? One of them was toxicity, okay, in the body. And this is what this substance does. Its only action in the body is to take harmful substances out of the body, okay? And this is something that can be used and made actually at home or far away from home. It's easier for us to buy it. It's not expensive, but it can be made if you needed to. All right, so here are some of the characteristics. It's readily available and inexpensive. It has an indefinite shelf life, no expiration date whatsoever. It's tasteless and odorless. It's effective but messy. It's harmless when ingested, even in large quantities. It's harmless when it's in contact with the skin, and it's harmless when it's inhaled in small quantities. Okay? No condition is made worse by its use. Even if it doesn't help, it doesn't harm. How's that for a natural remedy? Okay? A very, very little risk. We're not going to talk about one risk with it, but no side effects, and very, very safe. It's the substance with the largest surface area for its weight. And it is the strongest absorbent. Okay? Nope, let me say I said it wrong. Adsorbent. I don't have it misspelled up there. It's the strongest adsorbent. Okay? So out of the destruction and the ruins of the fire, we have this natural purifying agent of charcoal. Okay? American Indians were using this remedy before Europeans came to this continent. This was very, very commonly used before the growth of the drug industry. Okay? Any idea why it lost popularity after the rise of the drug industry? There's no money to be made. There's not very much money to be made from this substance whatsoever. Now, few are aware of it, not because it's ineffective, but because it requires effort, it can be messy, and only a limited amount of money can be made from its sale. So here's an interesting story about charcoal. In 1831, there was a pharmacist, his name was P.F. Toury. He made a demonstration of the effectiveness of charcoal before the French Academy of Medicine. So he's at this medical conference, right? And he swallows 15 grams of strychnine, okay, which is 10 times the lethal dose. And then he took an equal amount of charcoal right in front of his audience, and he survived with no ill effects. Now, I don't recommend that you go and try this, but that's just kind of the power of the use of charcoal for removing toxins from the body. Okay? And the beauty of this remedy is that it's simple, it's readily available to people throughout history and to people in other parts of the world. I used to have a story of some missionaries that I followed. I couldn't find it after our last move. I don't know what filing system I used when I moved, but I can't find it. But a story of some missionaries in Africa who use this on a regular basis to help the people that they're ministering to there. And they take it right from the fire pit and grind it and give it to people. Okay? When I took a group of high school and college age young people on a mission trip to Dominican, we used charcoal many times. It was a nice thing to have along. We ended up using it for bee stings. We ended up using it for one of the students that had an infected wound, an abscess. We used it for nausea, vomiting, and diarrhea. And we used it for a sore throat. So those are all the things that we used on just one mission trip with a group of young people. Okay? So charcoal. Let's talk about the things that charcoal adsorbs. All right? So these are the things that it can be used to remove from the body. And it is adsorb, not absorb. Okay? So adsorb means that it attaches it onto the outside of itself. It doesn't actually take it in like absorbing, like a sponge absorbs water. It just attaches these substances onto its surface. And remember we talked about that it has a large surface area for its weight. So there's lots of area that it can attach these onto. So it will adsorb toxic gases. It will adsorb fluid toxic waste. So whether it's in gas form or fluid form or solid form, it adsorbs it. It will adsorb poisons. And here's where we have to be careful, because medications are also poisons. Okay? Medications will help you in one area, but they can cause challenges in another. And all of them are chemicals that the body has to get rid of. Okay? And so charcoal will adsorb them. Okay? So you have to be careful not to take charcoal at the same time as your medications, because it will adsorb your medications as well. Okay? It will adsorb bacteria. The toxins that are given off from bacteria, and that's often the pain and the swelling and the redness that we get as a result of those toxins given off by the bacteria. It will adsorb viruses. It adsorbs the products of inflammation. It adsorbs the products of allergic reactions, and it adsorbs heavy metals. Okay, so quite a variety of things that charcoal can be used to help with in the body. And charcoal does not allow any of these substances to desorb. Okay, so if you are to take it internally and it's passing through the gastrointestinal tract, it's not going to all of a sudden let go of it partway through, and so they can get reabsorbed by the body. Once it has them adsorbed, it hangs on to them until it passes all the way through the GI tract. Okay? Once it's attached, it will remain attached until it's eliminated. And it does this through a couple of different mechanisms. One is an electrostatic charge on the surface of the charcoal particle that attracts most poisons. And the other way that it adsorbs these poisons is through a capillary action that draws the poisons to the charcoal particle. Okay. So we need to talk about what charcoal is and what it isn't. Charcoal is not burnt toast or burnt food. Okay? So don't tell your family to eat it. It's good for you anyways. Okay? So charcoal is what remains when the gases, proteins, fats are burned out of wood, leaving only the charred cellulose. Okay? Burnt food is actually charred proteins, fats, and carbohydrates. Okay, and it's not charcoal briquettes. Charcoal briquettes have added fillers and chemicals to them. Okay, and when we're talking about charcoal, there is the kind of charcoal that you can make from the charred wood out of your fire pit or out of your fireplace. And then there's also activated charcoal that you can purchase. Activated charcoal is more effective. Okay? Activated charcoal is charcoal that is taken in an industrial setting and subjected to pressurized steam or hot air, and it makes extensive network of fine pores, crevices, and pits in the charcoal particles so that they have more surface area in order to adsorb more toxins. So activated charcoal that you can purchase is going to be way, way more effective than what you can make from your fire pit. But certainly if you're out camping and that's what you have, that's readily available for you to go ahead and use. So activated charcoal just has a much larger surface area, and you're going to see when we start working with it, activated charcoal is very light and it will fly all over the place, okay, when you start working with it. So, and that's what makes it so effective in adsorbing. Okay, so here, this picture here is a carbon micrograph of an activated charcoal particle. So it shows all the extensive surface area created when it's activated. So you see all those pits and grooves and crevices there in the charcoal. That is all surface area that it can draw in and hold on to the toxins, the poisons, the bacteria, the viruses, and hold on to them until they can be pulled away and eliminated from the body. Okay. All right, and here's another picture of how this would be all the grooves and pits in an activated charcoal particle, and these gray shapes would be the toxins, the gases, the chemicals, whatever that it's adsorbing onto itself. So you can see it's got that whole surface area that it can pull them into, and then it still has all this surface around as well. Okay, so large surface area. Now charcoal is available as powder, capsules, and tablets. Tablets are the least effective because they're kind of compressed together. They also have added fillers. Powder is the fastest acting, has no added ingredients, but it is also the messiest and it's not as transportable. All right. So we're going to talk now about how to use charcoal. And we're going to start out with taking charcoal internally. So the adult dose of charcoal, boy, this is going to be hard with my table and the screen right behind me. The adult dose of charcoal is 1 to 2 heaping tablespoons of powder or 4 capsules or tablets. And so here I have capsules and tablets, and these are nice. These are more transportable, of course, and can be taken. But in a lot of my vehicles or on camping or backpacking trips, I will also take a small container of powder as well. And the powder is available, the activated charcoal powder is readily available in a couple different sizes, okay? This size will last you a good long time, but the good news is it has an indefinite shelf life, okay? So you can keep it for a long time. You can see I'm well stocked for a while to come. I have obtained mine in the past from Country Life Natural Foods. I understand there's a co-op that orders from there in Sturgis, and it's a little over an hour drive away from here. But that's where I've obtained it in the past. But nowadays you can order anything online and have it shipped to you within a day or two. And so this would be readily available online to purchase and have it shipped to you in whatever size you prefer as far as the powder. And the powder is you're going to see tonight how versatile it is, okay? So if you're going to take your 1 to 2 heaping tablespoons of charcoal, this is light and it flies around, so I would recommend not putting it in a glass of water and then adding your water. As soon as the water hits it, it's going to go poof, and you're going to have a black cloud. Okay? It's even a challenge when you put it on top of water and stirring it. So one thing we like to do is we keep a glass peanut butter jar around. This is our charcoal jar if we ever need charcoal internally for any reason. We will use this jar, so we can take and this does not have to exactly be measured. You can't. It's not an exact dose, okay? So I'm just going to drop in a couple spoonfuls of charcoal in there. I'm going to put my lid on it. And then we don't get the flying black cloud, okay? Shake it up. And there we go. Appetizing, isn't it? Okay. It isn't really, okay? And if you were going to have a child try to drink this, you probably wouldn't want to serve it to them in something clear like this, okay? You may have a challenge getting that down. But that would be how you would use it orally. And we're going to talk about what you would use it for. Now, if you didn't have activated charcoal, you would just want to double the amount that you took, okay? So if you're out camping and grinding some up, go ahead and use more of it, okay? Now, for serious problems like poisoning or overdose or a snake bite, it's better for you to take an overly large dose of it than to underdose, okay? Than to take too small of a dose. For children, decrease the dose appropriately based on their size, okay? Depending on how close they are to an adult size. You want to stir that, put the charcoal like we did in a half to 1 glass of water. It's best to take the charcoal at other times than meals, but if your meal is what caused you the problem that you're taking it for, then definitely go ahead and take it right after your meal. Now, charcoal is tasteless, but it's black and gritty, and some people find it not appealing, some children, well, adults and some children. So a closed container where you can't see what you're getting to, a straw, those are some of the things to help getting it down. Because it is gritty in here, if you take a straw and you put the straw towards the back of your mouth before you suck, then you don't get all that grittiness as much grittiness up in the front of your mouth, okay? And if you just can't do that, there are the capsules and the tablets, but it's hard to get that as large of a dose as you can with this, okay? Now, so what would we use this for when we're taking it orally? Okay? There's a number of things. First of all, we would use it for most kind of gastrointestinal problems. So gas, Diarrhea, you would take it with each loose stool. Nausea, vomiting, okay, again with vomiting, you take another dose each time you had a vomiting episode, and you want to take it as quickly as you can after vomiting. There's that refractory period, a period of time after you vomited once before your body will do it again. So you want to get the charcoal in during that period so it can do as much of a work of absorbing whatever's causing the vomiting before you might vomit again. Upset stomach, indigestion, heartburn, any of those kind of things. Taking charcoal is helpful. And what does it do? Well, it's absorbing whatever's causing the problem. Okay? All right, other things that we would take it for would be food poisoning. Again, this is a case, don't take it between the meals. If you got food poisoning, take it right away. Okay? It's going to absorb the bacteria that's making you sick. One of my favorite uses of this charcoal water is as a gargle for a sore throat. Okay? It's amazing how it will take away the pain of a sore throat. Okay? And what you want to do is after you gargle it, you can rinse out your mouth to get rid of the gritty in your mouth, but don't swallow because you want to leave those little charcoal particles that are stuck in the little grooves and folds inside the throat tissue there. You want to leave it there so that it continues to do some work absorbing the toxins that are causing pain and probably the viruses or the bacteria that are causing the infection. Okay? So rinse the mouth, don't rinse the throat, leave that charcoal residue in your throat. But it will significantly decrease the pain of a sore throat pretty quickly. This charcoal water can also be used for jaundice in newborns. Okay? You do have to probably let it settle out a little bit so that it will flow through the nipple of a bottle. Okay? And oral charcoal is also used for poisoning or overdoses. Okay? And this is actually the treatment of choice in emergency rooms still. No matter how high-tech we've gotten, they still use charcoal in emergency rooms for poisoning. Okay? Now, it's going to be most effective in these poisoning situations by adsorbing what's still in the gastrointestinal tract, what's still in the stomach and the rest of the gastrointestinal tracts. But the problems with poisons is that they're absorbed into the bloodstream. So sometimes by the time you are getting the charcoal in, it's absorbing what's in the stomach, but you've already got some in the bloodstream. So when people during this seminar, a lot of people ask me, can you use charcoal for this? Can you use charcoal for this? There's a lot of questions. What can we use it for? And the questions I always ask is, how are you going to get in contact with that toxin? Okay? You have to get the charcoal in close proximity to the toxins wherever it's at if it's going to work. So when poisons have been ingested, then if we ingest charcoal, we're getting the charcoal into the stomach where the toxins are, where the poisons are. But what about what's already been in the bloodstream? How are we able to draw things out of the bloodstream? There's only two ways that we can get charcoal close to the bloodstream. One is against the skin, and the other is in the gastrointestinal tract. Inside the gastrointestinal tract, we have these little projections, these little finger-like projections, and they're there in order to absorb nutrients and water from the stomach and the intestine. So this is the inside of an intestine, okay, one of the little finger-like projections, and you can see it's got lots of little blood vessels. Those blood vessels are there to absorb nutrients and water that the body is going to need. When we have charcoal in our gastrointestinal tract, it will come close to these little projections, and if there are poisons in the blood, it will draw some of them from the blood back into the gastrointestinal tract and absorb onto the charcoal. Okay? So this is kind of like, we call it like a microdialysis. Okay? It is drawing the toxins out of the bloodstream. Of course, it doesn't have contact with the entire bloodstream, but it will have contact with whatever comes through the the little finger projections in the gastrointestinal tract. Does that make sense? Okay? And we're going to talk a little bit later about how we could absorb things through the skin as well. So how charcoal could be effective with this microdialysis is for poisons that are already absorbed into the bloodstream. It will also draw out some of the medications that are already in the bloodstream as well. If there are any bloodborne infections, it can help draw those from the bloodstream. And any poisonous substances that are inhaled or injected, it can also be somewhat helpful for those. Okay? So for toxins that are in the bloodstream, through the gastrointestinal tract, or through the skin are two ways that we can have some effect on those. All right, so next we're going to talk about charcoal slurry water. So if we were to take and leave this water charcoal mixture, this charcoal would keep settling down, okay? And pretty soon most of the charcoal would be down at the bottom, and we would have like a grayish kind of water left here up at the top. We call that slurry water. And that slurry water can be used for eye infections. Okay? So you would take it with an eyedropper and could drop it directly into your eye to help absorb the byproducts of the infection and the bacteria that are causing, the organisms that are causing the infection. Okay? So that's about the only thing that I know of that we use slurry water for. Okay? So that's the water that's on top after the charcoal settles down to the bottom. Okay, and then next let's talk about use of charcoal poultices or compresses. This is where we would use charcoal on the outside of the body, on the skin. And I think you're going to be surprised at how many different things we can treat by putting charcoal on the outside of the body. But before we start talking about it, you need to know that charcoal stains clothing, towels, and bedding. It's black, and it's hard to get it out, okay? And so you just need to be prepared. When I worked in a lifestyle center where we used charcoal on a regular basis, we had dark sheets that we used whenever someone was using charcoal poultices. In fact, we would oftentimes send them, they had treatment and were at the lifestyle center during the day. They went back to their hotel rooms at night, and we would send them, if we were sending them with charcoal poultices to use overnight, we would send them with some dark sheets because the hotels in the area did not like us when we would get charcoal stains on their linens. So you need to be careful of that. And the other thing that you need to be aware of is that when charcoal is used on broken skin or open wounds, it can cause tattooing. Okay? So you may get some of that charcoal into the wound, and it may permanently stay that dark discoloration even when the wound heals up. Okay? So that's always a risk. Oftentimes some people, especially with some hard to heal wounds, they say, I don't care what's tattooed there afterwards, I just want this thing healed. Okay, so you just have to be aware of that's a potential risk if you're putting it on open skin. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and show you how to make a charcoal poultice. We're going to make a small one up here, and then we're going to talk about how you can make larger ones. And I want you to watch carefully because you're actually going to have the opportunity to make one of these and take it home with you tonight. Let me move some things out of the way here so you can see. Oh, it's going to block the view over there, so we'll put this down. Okay, so when we're making a charcoal poultice, we want to add charcoal with water, and it's helpful to use something that's also a thickener, okay? So the things that you can use for a thickener, I like using either flax meal, so ground flax seeds. They also have a drying component, so when we put them on the skin, it kind of works along with the charcoal. So we're going to take a spoonful of charcoal, and we're going to take an equal amount of our thickener, so which can be the flax seed or oat flour. Okay, and you can make your own oat flour by just taking rolled oats, quick, old-fashioned, doesn't matter which, and blend them up in your blender and make your own oat flour. That's what this is. This is just rolled oats blended. Okay, so we're going to take about an equal amount and add it to that. Okay, some people say you can also use cornstarch, but you know cornstarch has a funny consistency when it's mixed with water. If that's what you have, that will work as well, okay? But I prefer either the oat flour or the flax meal. And the oat flour is just much cheaper than the flax meal. Okay? And then we're going to want to add warm water. If you're using the flax meal, it's a little more important that it's warm to hot water because that kind of activates it becoming gelatinous. Want to add some water to it. I'm going to be careful. I don't know if you can see that, but it kind of poofed a little bit there. Okay? Charcoal is light. It flies. And we want to add enough water that we make a consistency about like pudding, mayonnaise, something along that. Okay. I'm going to add just a little bit more here. Okay, and then I'm going to take, and you're going to have these out in the lobby, in the hallway as well. Take a plastic. You can use any kind of plastic to put on the back of it. I find it easiest to use these fold-over sandwich bags. You know, saran wrap never cooperates, never lays flat, but you know, any kind of plastic will work. I'm going to put my paper towel on top of that, and then I'm going to spoon. Here's my mixture. Pudding, that's maybe a little thicker than pudding. It'll work though. So I'm going to take some of my mixture and I'm going to put it on half of my paper towel here. And of course you take a paper towel that was appropriate to the size of the charcoal poultice that you needed. I'm going to spread that around on half of the paper towel. Okay, let's see if I can hold it up there enough for you to see. Okay, so you see I've got it spread around. Looks like a mess, right? Okay, then we're going to fold our paper towel over. And there's actually our compress, but we're going to make it a little more usable, a little more user-friendly by attaching it to that plastic. So to do that, I'm going to take tape, any kind of tape that'll stick down. I'm using masking tape here, and I'm going to put it down along all four edges of this compress. Show it to you again as soon as I get it taped down here. Okay, so here's my paper towel with the charcoal mixture inside taped to a plastic backing, okay? Here you can see the other side of it. And then I'm going to take and just cut this out. Okay, and then here is my finished product. Okay. So this can be used. We're going to go through the list here in a minute, but let me just run through some of them I can think off the top of my head without looking at my list. For an ear infection, okay, I'd probably make this just a little bit bigger and put it against the ear. I can use it for an eye infection. I can use it on bee sting. Okay. I could use it on poison ivy. All right, so we're going to talk about a number of things that we can put this on. These can be made ahead of time, and they can be stored. You'll have a Ziploc bag back there that you can put yours in to take yours home. Okay? Yes.
Dry out and just gets a little wet, or no?
If you store them in here, they won't dry out. You can keep them for, I don't know, several days, maybe up to a week in the refrigerator. Okay? If you're going to have them longer than that, you can make them up ahead of time and put them in your freezer. Okay? And then when you need one, kids get a bee sting, whatever, pull them out, microwave it, and it's ready to go. Okay? Just thaw it in the microwave and it's ready to go. Okay? So what we've got here is we've got an area where we've got the charcoal right underneath the surface of the paper towel. So when I put it on my skin, it will start adsorbing whatever's in the skin and what the blood flow brings, things that are below the surface of the skin. We've got a plastic backing here so that when we've got it on our skin, we don't have charcoal or moisture coming out into the outside, okay? When you put this on the skin, there will be a little bit of charcoal residue that can still come through. Now, if you're putting out an open wound and you're concerned about tattooing, there's going to be much less tattooing because there's much less of the charcoal actually in the wound when you make a poultice than if you put the charcoal directly on the wound. Okay? But there still is a risk that there will be some tattooing. You'll still see some black residue on your skin when you take this off. Okay? All right? So you're going to be able to make one of these before you leave and take it home with you. So let's talk about how we would use these charcoal poultices then. Okay, so we already mentioned that you can use them for eye infections. So you would place it over top of the eye, and probably the easiest way to keep that on the eye is to just stay laying down. And it's actually soft enough. You can mold it around the shape of the eye so that it's in really, really close contact, contoured around the eye, and let it adsorb the infection from there. For ear infections or for earaches, again, make it large enough that you can take and you can mold it around the external ear, okay? And again, we talked before about when we put moisture on the skin, it draws blood to the surface. So you're putting a moist compress on the skin. It's going to draw blood to the surface, and that blood that it draws to the surface is going to be containing all of those toxins, those bacteria that you're trying to adsorb. Okay, so it's going to then draw them out through the skin into the charcoal poultice. Holding charcoal poultice in place on an ear, just a matter of a headband, okay, to hold it tight against there. There's, this kind of headband, or there's the kind of headbands that they use for, kids with tubes in their ears to keep the water out. That's also kind of a stretchy band that works nice as well for holding a charcoal poultice on an ear. Right. I keep walking away and leaving my clicker. All right, so any infection or inflammation of the skins, joints, or sinuses. Okay, so you can make a charcoal poultice, and you can put it over top, lay it over top of the area of the sinuses to draw the infection and the inflammation. We already mentioned poison ivy. It can be used over an insect bite or a bee sting. It can be used for gum or tooth pain or infections, and let's talk a little bit about that. You wouldn't want to stick this. You could put this, if you had gum or tooth, you could stick it on the outside, but even to get it closer and to be more effective is you could take and empty out a tea bag and put your charcoal mixture inside the tea bag and then slide that in between your gum and your tooth. Okay, and then just let it sit there. Or the other option is you can take the charcoal tablets and take a tablet and put it in your mouth between your tooth and your gum as well, and let that just dissolve there. Okay. Now, if you do that at night, just remember you might drool on your pillow, and so put a dark towel or something on your pillow. Okay? As far as insect bites and bee stings, okay, if there's multiple bee stings, you can put a charcoal poultice, or if it's in a large area of the body, you may want to use a charcoal bath where you're just immersing the body part in charcoal water, and we'll talk about that in a minute. If it's just like an ant bite or a mosquito bite, you can just take a Band-Aid and wet the gauze on the Band-Aid, and then drop a little charcoal powder on the wet gauze, and then stick that over top. Okay, bee stings, I mean, if you've got one of these in your freezer or in your refrigerator and you can put it on fast, that's nice, okay? But when you got a screaming kid, you may just want to take a little bit of charcoal powder and mix it with water and just with a paste and just smear it on there to start with, okay? Because it'll really start drawing out the toxins from the bee sting and decrease some of the pain pretty quickly. All right, so you can just make a paste with water and charcoal and put that right on a bite, directly on a bite as well. It's just that the charcoal poultice is a little cleaner, a little less messy, and it lasts, you can leave it on a little bit longer. Okay. All right, let's see what else. Okay, you can use a charcoal poultice for kidney or liver failure. All right, in this kind of case, for kidney or liver failure, you would want to take charcoal by mouth, because you'd get some of that microdialysis in the gut by it going through the gastrointestinal tract. And for the kidney, you're going to want to put a large poultice to the back. And for the liver, you're going to want to put a large poultice on the right upper abdomen. Okay, so over the liver or over the kidneys. All right, so when I worked at a lifestyle center, we actually made very, very large poultices for our clients. And when the doctor ordered them to be put over top of the kidney for someone with kidney failure, when they would take them off, we'd have them wear them overnight, keep them on overnight. And when they take them off in the morning, it would actually smell like urine. Okay, because it was doing the work that the kidneys weren't able to do. And when it was detoxifying the kidneys, it was the same kind of products that normally would be in urine, and so the poultice itself. I'm just telling you that so that you know that this really is effective, okay, in pulling it out. So let me show you how we made a large poultice. We would take these underpads, okay, and we would take this little thin, gauzy kind of layer, and we'd cut it around on 3 sides, separate it from the rest of the pad. We'd fold this back, and we used to make up our charcoal mixture. We'd make it in a vat, okay, large amounts, and then we'd take it with a spatula, we'd spread it over top of this, take and lay this top layer back down on top of it, and then we'd take our tape and we'd tape around the 3 sides that had been opened. Okay? Then we would actually take them after we had them spread, we'd fold them up, and we'd store them in the refrigerator, and then we'd send them back to their hotel room at night with instructions about how to use the pack. Okay? So if someone was just needing it for the kidney, okay, they would have it on their back during the night. Okay? If they were using it for the liver, it would be on the front over the right upper abdomen at night, and we'd make them appropriate sizes for them. I'm going to talk about some of the other uses of these large poultices. We would also use them for systemic detoxification, or missing one, pancreatitis or abdominal pain. You could use it over the abdomen, or for systemic detoxification. And that's probably the biggest use that we used it for in the lifestyle center. So we would use it for nicotine, okay, someone who was trying to stop smoking. And when we took them off in the morning, they would smell like an ashtray, okay, because it was taking out the nicotine from the system. For fibromyalgia, anybody with cancer, we use these on. Anyone who had environmental toxins, I already mentioned kidney and liver failure. And so whenever we were doing it to try and detoxify the whole system, we would use large poultices. And we had some options about where we put them. We could put large poultices to the trunk, both front and back. We could wrap them around arms, we could wrap them around legs, depending on how much skin we wanted to draw stuff up through, would depend on where we would put it. Anyone with cancer, we would definitely have it over the area of cancer, but also over as large of an area as we could. So someone could be sent back with these, and they could, one on the front, one on the back, and actually just take tape and tape them together at the shoulders and at the sides to make kind of a vest. And they would sleep in them at night, or else leave them on for several hours if they had too hard of a time sleeping with that on. We could take them and, again, wrap them around legs, wrap them completely around arms, okay? We just make appropriate sizes for whatever body part they were supposed to put them on. And when we were trying to do systemic detoxification, we would get charcoal poultices within contact of as much skin as we possibly could, okay? Our men with prostate cancer, we'd actually have them put it on and use it kind of in a diaper kind of form, okay? So they put it on, strap, between the legs and tape it at the sides, similar to a diaper, in order to get the charcoal in contact with the area. Patients with thyroid problems or throat cancers, we would make a charcoal poultice, like this, tape that down, and then they could be on the neck. Okay. So I don't know very many people at home that use these large poultices very often. But if you are interested, I do have a sheet with the recipe, if you call it, for making large quantities of charcoal mixture to put on those kind of large poultices. All right, any questions on those charcoal poultices? Okay, I have never been in a situation where I've used the large ones at home. I've used them quite a bit with patients in a lifestyle center, but we've used a lot of this size or a little bit larger at home. Okay. When we had kids at home, we usually had a stash of them in the freezer so that they were ready when they were needed. Okay. Fun stuff. All right, so there are times when a charcoal bath is easier than a poultice. And when we're talking about a charcoal bath, we're talking about a bucket where you would stick your arm or your foot or your leg into, or else a whole bathtub where you would put the charcoal in the bathtub and you would get in. So you could see where that would be similar to a charcoal poultice, except it's a little harder to stay in a bathtub for as many hours as you could wear a poultice for. And so that's why we used, you can use a charcoal bath for systemic detoxification as well. So if we were using a charcoal bath in a bucket, we'd use a ½ cup of charcoal for every 2 to 3 gallons of water. And these numbers are in your handout there. And if you're using a bathtub, you'd use about 2 cups of charcoal for a bathtub of water. Now, you have to be aware that if you've got a textured bottom on your bathtub, that you'll have to get a brush to scrub that charcoal residue out of the little textured bottoms. If you have little stick-down, non-skid things, you're probably not going to get the charcoal out from around the edges of that, okay? And if you have any nicks or anything in your finish on your tub, you may not get it out of there as well. So just a warning, okay? So charcoal bath, we would use that in the case of multiple bee stings, okay? So if someone just got stung all over their body, get them into a bathtub of water. If they got stung multiple times on a hand, get the hand in a bucket of charcoal water, all right? Especially if there's allergies to bee stings, if charcoal is quickly available, you can do that, or if you're not close to medical attention. Of course, allergy to bee stings, medical attention quickly is important, okay? So don't stop going to medical attention in order to do the charcoal, but if you can do the charcoal at the same time that you're getting medical attention, then do it if there's an allergy to bee stings. Poison ivy can also be done in a bath, and again, beware if there's any open areas from the poison ivy, you may get some tattooing. Spider bites can be immersed in a charcoal bath. Snake bites as well, and again, this is one of those situations, get them in a charcoal bath while you're getting to medical attention if it's a venomous snake. And then the systemic detoxification, all the same reasons we would have used those big charcoal poultices, okay? Trying to stop smoking, detoxifying from nicotine or environmental or cancers, any of those systemic diseases. Okay? Any questions on that? This is fun stuff. It's nice to have a bottle of, a jar of charcoal powder in your house when something comes up that you need it for. Okay, so whenever we're asking that question, we're going to say, what is there internally in the bloodstream or in the gastrointestinal tract that we'd want to absorb, okay? If like a snake bite or the venom from bee stings or whatever had already spread throughout the body, yes, there may be some benefit to taking it internally, because then it would start absorbing from the blood whatever comes close to the inside of the... And again, remember, if it doesn't help, it's not going to hurt. Yes. Okay? The only time it's going to hurt is if it absorbs medications that you need that are life-saving medications. Your cardiac medications, your anti-seizure medications. I'm going to be really concerned if you're taking charcoal along with those medications and you're not getting the effectiveness that you need from them. Okay, so that's the one downside to charcoal. Some people will argue that it absorbs nutrients from food as well. That's still a questionable one, whether it does or not, and we say if you're concerned about that, just don't take it close to meals. That's why we say don't take it with meals unless the meal has caused you a problem, then definitely take it. Okay? Does that answer your question? Okay, and I didn't repeat the question for the live stream, did I? The question was if it was it snake bites? Yeah, so when there's bites, whether it's bee stings or spiders or snakes, is it beneficial to take it internally as well as putting it externally? Sorry about that live stream. All right. All right, one other way that charcoal is used, well, charcoal is used in your, in a lot of your water filters. Are you aware of your Brita filters are charcoal filters, okay? It's filtering your water through charcoal in order to absorb anything that may not be good for you, okay? Charcoal can also be used as a deodorizer. Sometimes there's infected wounds that are just really have a bad odor. And I always feel sorry for patients who have this because, you know, as caregivers, we come in and we take care of them when we get to leave. They never get to get away from the smell of their own wound. And then sometimes it's just so difficult and so disheartening. And you can sprinkle dry charcoal, like from a salt shaker, onto the wound in order to deodorize the wound. You will get tattooing in that situation. And so it's a matter of weighing, you know. A lot of people with a wound with a bad odor would do anything. They don't care if that's tattooed after. They just want that thing to heal and they, you know, would like to get away from the smell of it, okay? So that's something that can be used for. Charcoal can be used for bad breath. So you can take the charcoal water, like we mixed up here, and you can swish it around in the mouth, or you can dissolve a charcoal tablet in your mouth. You will have grit, but it'll help your breath. But not all bad breath is from the mouth. Some of it comes from lower on down, and if that's the case, then actually drinking the charcoal water will help the source if it's from lower down. Okay? Odors from a colostomy or an ileostomy. Okay? If you take internal charcoal, there will be less of an odor from the ostomy there. For casts, Charcoal can be added to the casting material, or it can be sprinkled down inside the cast. Just know if you sprinkle it down inside the cast, when you take the cast off, you're going to have a mess down there. It's going to be kind of black, okay? You want to warn your whoever's taking off your cast if you've done that, so they don't freak out when all of a sudden there's all this black stuff inside the cast. All right? And then charcoal can be used as a deodorizer in a household, so in refrigerators, kitchen odors, those kind of things. Okay? Again, it adsorbs poisonous gases, solids, and liquids. All right, so that's the miracle of charcoal. Again, a very, very simple thing comes out of the destruction of a fire, and something that is a gift to us that can be used for so many different things for our healing. And, you know, we have a lot of things that are available to us in our medical care in a first world country like we live, but the charcoal is something that's hugely beneficial to us, and it's also just as available and beneficial to those in third world countries, in underdeveloped areas, in emergency situations out in the wilderness where medical care isn't readily available. So it's a very good skill to have, is the ability to use charcoal. Okay. All right, we're ready to take any questions.
How do you use that as a deodorizer in the home without making a mess? Like, my friend bought me some things that were made in a solid gel form. You can set them around the house and they absorb and they, you know, get smaller and smaller and
Right.
bigger. But how could you do your own?
Yeah, some of those, were those ones impregnated with charcoal as well?
They were full of charcoal. They were
Yeah.
in the gel form. Charcoal.
Yeah. So that it didn't make a mess, I would probably, if I was going to put it in a refrigerator or in a kitchen or someplace to absorb odors, I would probably put it in something like with a shaker top or something that had holes where it wasn't going to knock over or poof over. So it had a lid, but the lid, or poke holes in the lid of something. So you'd want it, yeah, ideally in something with a lid, but with holes on it so that it could pull the odoriferous gases into it. Yeah. Yep. Okay. Yes.
So if you wanted to take it internally, could you put it in like an apple juice or something so it tastes a little better?
Okay, if you want to take it internally, could you put it in apple juice or something? Yes, and in fact, I didn't mention one of the suggestions for kids is to mix it with grape juice. Okay, so a darker colored juice so that the color is not so much of a turnoff. So yes, yep, you can mix it with any kind of liquid that you wanted to. Yep. Any other questions? All right, so we have one more meeting in our series, and this one is going to be entitled Supercharging Your Immune System. This is the powerhouse of hydrotherapy. Now, when you come, it's going to be much more complex than what you saw as far as the hot foot bath and the contrast bath and the heating compresses. Those were the simple ones. They kind of introduced you to the basics. Thursday night, we're going to show you the powerhouse of what we call hydrotherapy, or the water treatments. I want you to see it because becoming skilled in that, I think, is vitally, vitally important, especially dealing with, in our household, primarily used it for respiratory illnesses, okay? So when you're talking pneumonias, bronchitis, colds, flus, sinus infections, all of these kind of upper respiratory and respiratory illnesses, this is where it becomes the powerhouse. COVID's newer, and I have not personally had the opportunity to use this particular treatment with COVID, but I do have friends who have used it on others, and they have found it to be as effective with COVID as with other respiratory illnesses. Okay? Again, as with Annie, we're going to talk about the fact that you need to know when someone's beyond your capabilities, when they need additional help. Okay? But it is the powerhouse. I want you to come, I want you to see it. And then you can make a decision, is this something that I'm going to learn how to do skillfully so that I could do it on somebody else? Let me tell you, with COVID going on, if I can treat my family members at home without them having to go to a hospital, that definitely is preferable. During the spikes, we all know that those with mild to moderate COVID are not even, they don't want you in the hospital. They're going to turn around, they're going to send you at home anyways. Okay, so having some skills as far as knowing what to do with it, I think, is invaluable. COVID aside, like I said, I haven't used it for COVID yet, but I used this tons of times when I had my family at home, when my kids were at home and the flus and the colds would go around. This was our treatment of choice. It's a wonderful way that families can hands-on minister to each other. And if you don't have anyone to do it to, and you don't have anyone to do it to you, we're also going to talk about how you can do it to yourself as well. Okay? So we want to make sure that we make this as useful as possible. But the reason why this is so powerful is when we talked about that contrasting hot and cold has the power of increasing the circulating white blood cells by 200 to 300%. This is the treatment that does that. Okay? We're getting hot and cold over a much larger area of the body. We're doing a lot of treatment over the chest, and we're going to make a huge impact on the immune function. Okay? It will also make you feel better because it'll help clear the sinuses and the chest and those kind of things. But the real importance is what it does with the immune system to help the body fight it off itself. Okay? And if we can, and that's really the goal of natural remedies, is to set up our bodies for success so that our bodies can heal themselves. That's the purpose of charcoal, is to get rid of the toxins and the bacteria and the virus so then the body can recover and heal for itself. Okay? So remember, with all of the natural remedies, we're aimed at three things. We're either trying to improve circulation in the body, we're trying to improve the function of the immune system, or we're trying to decrease toxins that are in the system. Okay? And this treatment that we're going to do on Thursday night does all three of them. Okay? So you will want to see this. This is the powerhouse of the natural remedies, and I think you'll enjoy seeing it happen, and I hope that you'll then want to invest in learning how to become skilled to do this. Okay? All right. I didn't pull out my drawing books, so I'm going to slip behind and grab those real quickly. If someone can bring me up the names. Okay, and I'm also going to show you the big resource that we're going to give away Thursday evening as well. This is Health Power, Health by Choice, Not by Chance. This is an awesome resource by Hans Diehl. If you've ever heard of him, he's maybe the grandfather of lifestyle medicine, okay, of modern lifestyle medicine anyways. And a very well done book, and it goes through the New Start principles, pretty much, that we've been talking about in a easy way with applications. So this one is a great resource. This is kind of to cap off our series that we're giving that one away. So that one will be Thursday evening. So tonight we're giving away again our two lifestyle books, 24 Realistic Ways to Improve Your Health and 10 Choices for a Full Life. And in addition, these are fun. I've got 2 charcoal books. Okay? If you already have this at home and I draw your name, let's let somebody else have it, unless you have someone you want to pass it on to. But this is a resource, a good resource book about using charcoal. Okay? And it's in a pretty easy, understandable way. So those are fun to have available to pass out as well. Okay, are you going to draw me names, or am I drawing names? Okay, so we're going to give away first our 10 Choices book, and that one's going to Gina. That's one of our online people. Okay, our next 24 Realistic Ways is going to Tracy. to deliver that to Tracy? Yep. Okay, and our charcoal book is going to Donna, first one of our charcoal books. And another one is going to Carl. Carl's listening online. So I think Carl's got family here that can deliver that for him.
I don't know. She might just keep it.
She might keep it, yeah. Okay, so those are some good resources. I hope that you enjoy those. And we're going to close with prayer. If there aren't any other questions, we're going to go ahead and close with prayer. And then we've got time for you to make your charcoal poultice out there. So what I'm going to have you do is I'm going to, after we close with prayer, I'm going to go ahead and spoon out your charcoal and your oat flour into a cup, and then you're going to take it out into the hallway, and there's tables set up with all the rest of the supplies you need to make your poultice, and then a bag for you to put it in to take it home. Okay? So take it home. If you don't need it right away, put it in your freezer. It'll be there when you do. Okay? All right, let's close with prayer. Heavenly Father, I want to thank you that you're so good to us, that you provide easy, simple things that we can do to improve our health, to prevent disease, and to improve healing if we are injured or get an illness. And Lord, I pray that you will bless those who have been here, those who have been watching and listening online. I pray that you'll be with them as well. And Lord, I pray that you will bring us back Thursday night as we finish up with this series, this seminar on gifts that you have given us for our health and our healing. We thank you for it in Jesus' name. Amen. All right. Unfortunately, we can't do this for our live stream people, but those of you who are here, I'm going to pull out a cup.